Howdy there, daylight burners. Happy, I guess you'll be hearing this Thursday. Apologize for the lack of an episode on Wednesday. That was a complete and utter failure on my part. Um, Recorded just a real banger of an episode with Sam McHugh, commemorating the late great Joe Diffie. My computer crashed on me, and the live stream kicked us off. So anyway, it was a good episode. We're gonna try to redo it on Thursday night. So it's Wednesday now. You'll be hearing this Thursday. Anyhow, apologize for that. Got some pretty big news. If you haven't seen my post on social media, go ahead and check it out. But we will be going live Friday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific time, with Corb Lund, the Hurtin' Albertan himself. I met him in Elko. I've seen him play 3 or 4 times. We got to talk to him just very briefly there in Elko. He was gracious enough to give me his phone number. We've been in contact since then, on and off, and we finally got something scheduled, got it confirmed with his manager and scheduling person. So we are all set up, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good time. Corb's one of my favorite songwriters, musicians in general. I've been a big fan of his for like 15 years or something like that. In college is when I started listening to him. I'll be out of college for 12 years this year, so it's been a long time that I've listened to him, and I'm really pretty stoked about this one. So make sure you catch it. If you can't catch the live stream, don't worry. The audio version will be out on Monday. We'll be using some of Corb's music, obviously. Been doing that for a long time anyways. So stay tuned for that. Like I said, I'm really excited about that. I think it's going to be a good one. I think this could be a pretty big deal for this little shit show of a podcast. But anyways, make sure you stay tuned. I'm going to do a little rambling here, kind of give you my thoughts on the world. First, got to tell you about Loma Livestock. You know the routine by now. George Raptopoulos, he's the proud owner, operator of Loma Livestock there in Loma, Colorado. They're located at 1369 12.5 Road. Got a sale going every Wednesday with cows and singles starting at 10 o'clock, followed by the feeders and the bigger bunches at 11. And if you'd like to consign, or you got any questions for them, just make sure you give them a holler, 970-858-9988, or you can check them out online at lomalivestock.com. Best thing you can do, though, is just go visit the sale, grab a burger, grab a bite to eat, watch the cows sell, buy some cows, sell some cows, whatever. Give them your support. Best sale barn in Western Colorado, if not the Western U.S., maybe the whole country. I don't know. I haven't been to all of them, but Loma Livestock's been pretty good to me, so go check them out. Thanks, George. Thanks, Loma Livestock. So we are like day 19 or 20 into this national emergency for the pandemic of all pandemics, the COVID-19. We're approaching 3,000 deaths in the U.S., I believe, including the late, great Joe Diffie. Rest in peace, good sir. Got plenty to talk about on Joe Diffie, but we're going to do that. Try that again with Sam. So anyhow, things a little serious. I will say that especially for the older people, looks like it's it could be not real good. The bigger cities as well. That's to be expected when you've got people literally living on top of each other, especially like New York. I don't know if anybody's ever been to New York City. If you haven't, I would recommend it. It is really a pretty neat place. I wouldn't never ever want to live there, and I don't really want to visit for more than a day or two at a time. But there's a lot of cool stuff to see. You'll have your mind blown by just how many languages you hear walking down the street. It's really pretty cool. I would highly recommend after this whole thing kind of goes away and everybody's health levels, and when we're not under a pandemic, I would, if you get a chance, I would recommend going to New York just to see it, just to experience it. But it's really no wonder that it's spreading like that, because New York City, there's something like 9 million people that live in the city itself, and it's not that big of a place as far as landmass goes. Um, so you have people literally living on top of each other, high-rise apartments, skyscrapers, all that. They really jam a lot of people into a small amount of space, and that is just like perfect breeding ground for a virus to spread. Um, it's really kind of frustrating listening to people, and not that I'm any expert on medical issues, but I do work in the animal health industry. I'm the cow boss for a background feed yard, and we deal with viral infections a lot. Um, Luckily, we don't have very many outbreaks, but there, from time to time, we have had some pretty serious outbreaks of BVD or some sort of viral deal that caused some diphtheria in a set of steers, and then we've also had some coccidiosis outbreaks, and shit gets pretty nasty real quick. When you got a highly contagious virus like that, if you don't quarantine the ones that are sick and get them out of there, they shed that virus real quick. It spreads around, and next thing you know, you got a whole bunch of sick or dead calves or both. And so in the feedlot business, we are pretty good at minimizing sickness and death loss. That's kind of the name of the game. If the animal dies, you get no money from it, or you get very little money if you, depending on what your situation is with a rendering plant. Or if they get sick, they kind of become a chronic, and they make it to where they get on a railer truck, and you get some money out of them, but you're not getting full market value because they're not worth full market value. So you're losing money on them. Plus, you've already got a bunch of drugs in their system. By drugs, I mean antibiotics. And yes, people, antibiotics are a good thing, just like vaccines. They are good things. And but the more times you have to give them an injection, the more money that costs you, and the less your profit goes down. And pretty soon you can be upside down in the set of calves if the health isn't good. So that's something you've got to take into account. Now, that being said, there is a pretty big difference between a bacterial infection and a viral infection. A virus basically is a strand of messenger DNA that wreaks havoc, and because of that, there's no nucleus to a virus. So it's hard. Like in bacteria, you kill the nucleus, and that kills the cell. Where there's no nucleus in a virus, it's really hard to kill it. A lot of heat. But antibiotics typically don't work. Antibiotics will treat the infection that results from a viral outbreak, but they don't treat the virus itself. There is no way to eradicate a virus that I'm aware of. Like the polio virus is still around. Like it's there, but the reason it's not a big issue anymore is because we've built up an immunity to it through vaccines. Now this COVID deal is a different deal because it's what they call a novel virus, meaning that nobody really, well, not nobody, but when it first was noticed as an outbreak, it was a new strain of basically the common cold virus, the coronavirus, which is what the common cold is, what SARS is, what is MERS. A lot of these respiratory diseases, but it's just a mutation of the same type of virus. But nobody had really been exposed to it, and this is why we're having this big outbreak, because there is not a built-up immunity to it, because there's no vaccine, and up until several months ago, nobody had ever had it. So now it is spreading like wildfire because it's highly transmissible through, because it's airborne and it's highly contagious. And the biggest part is you can have it, not show any symptoms, and still be shedding that virus, spreading it around. So that's kind of the long and short of why this thing has got to where it is. But like I said, coming from the feedlot background and just cattle health in general, the way people are responding to it is exactly the opposite the way you would respond in cattle. Now, before I get accused of advocating for government intervention, I'm opposed to any sort of mandatory quarantine, mandatory lockdown, all that good stuff. Those are terrible. Violates a person's freedom of movement and their freedom to assemble, all that, and just to be able to go make a living, like when the government is forcing you to stay home so you don't spread disease. I don't think that's right. I think it's a good idea. This social distancing thing is a good idea. However, I think in the long run, you've kind of got to let this thing run its course until you develop a vaccine. And the more people that contract coronavirus, the more people recover. There's also going to be some more deaths involved. But as we've seen, you cannot stop it. You can kind of mitigate it, flatten the curve, as they call it. But in the long run, the more you keep people contained, the more harm it does to the economy. And in the long run, I don't know how much difference it's going to make as far as flattening the curve, if you will, slowing it down. I'm a firm believer in herd immunity, because that is how you deal with cattle. You vaccinate them all. And I know there is not a vaccine, but the next best bet is for you to get sick and recover. And that way your body naturally builds up immunity to this COVID-19. I also happen to believe a little more. I don't even say it's like conspiracy theory minded. I just think you look at the facts. China has been reported to have this outbreak since like November. I would venture to bet they've had it for quite a bit longer than that, because I don't trust anything that the Chinese government puts out. I trust them even less than I trust our own government. And I have next to zero trust in our government. So that means China's real bad. And I don't see how I don't buy their numbers. I would bet that they've had they had this outbreak for at least a month or more before we realized it, because they're not going to say anything until they absolutely have to, because it makes them look bad. And on the world stage, every country wants to look good. They want to look powerful, all that good shit. And when you have this, pandemic, global pandemic now, but starting in China, makes you look bad. So they didn't say anything about it until they absolutely had to, I don't think. So that means for however long before they actually acknowledged that this was a problem, you still had thousands, if not millions of people traveling back and forth from here in China and all over the world. And, I would venture to bet that a very significant percentage of our population has already been exposed to coronavirus and either came down with it, or they showed no symptoms and recovered and had no idea that's what they had. Looking back at the timeline, I wouldn't be surprised if my whole family has had it, just based off of the symptoms, which is, tightness in the chest, low grade fever, dry cough. Could be any number of things. I don't know. They didn't get tested. Didn't know it was really an issue until this whole thing went down. I've been following it a little bit, but not much. And so I would venture to bet that a bunch of people have already had it. And what that means is there's a lot more cases out there than what are confirmed, meaning that the death rate is significantly lower than what is being reported. Now, I don't have any facts to back that up. That is just my personal belief. That is not to say that this thing isn't a serious deal. I think it's obvious that it is. Almost 3,000 deaths. That's a lot of people. It's kind of a drop in the bucket as far as U.S. population goes, and as opposed to, say, the flu. Still, it's a significant amount of people, and thoughts and prayers and all that. I'm not trying to downplay the people that have contracted it and died, or are still dealing with it and not doing well. All that is terrible. I'm not trying to downplay that. What I am trying to downplay is the panic that we've seen from the federal government, from state governments, and from just people in general, whether it's deploying the National Guard to people just hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizer. People really act irrationally when they're scared, and I think there's a lot of scared people out there, and I think it's a lot of needless fear mongering, to put it bluntly. It's fear mongering, and I don't like it. I don't know where it goes from here, but the remedies that they put out, especially on the economic side, are going to be not good at all. Like, probably pretty disastrous for the economy, and I think that's going to have far more lasting effects than the virus ever will. I could be wrong. It could be, the next Black Plague, but the numbers just aren't showing it at the moment. I think there's a lot more people that have had it and didn't know it, or they just didn't go get tested, whatever. And I don't think it's as big of a deal as they're making it out to be. But as I've said the whole time, if you've been listening for any period of time, you know that I've said that Trump is a shoo-in to win as long as the economy is chugging along like it had been. Found out real quick that the economy was on some pretty shaky footing, and just a couple of weeks of this, and the stock market is in the shitter, the cattle market's in the shitter. Companies are shifting to produce different products, medical related products, in order to alleviate that. Part of that is from directive of the government, and also a lot of that has to do with getting rid of some of the red tape that is required, all these hurdles that you got to jump over to, say, get a drug to market, or even a testing kit. As soon as they remove some of the regulations for that COVID-19 testing kit that was better and faster than what they had before, it just wasn't approved by the FDA. What do you know? They lift the regulations, and now I won't say they had plenty of tests, but they had a whole lot of better, faster tests available, because that's what the free market does. Is when people see a need for a product, they make a product, and they typically make it very well because they know somebody else is going to try to put one out as well. That's how competition works. Competition's a good thing. If two companies are competing for who can make the best product at the lower price, who wins? Both companies probably not going to win, but the consumer wins. They're going to get the best product at the best possible price, because it behooves companies to do that so that they make a profit. So all these socialist type politicians, Bernie Sanders, looking at you. I know they'd like to make healthcare and, say a vaccine for this thing, or testing. They'd like to make it, just free for everybody. Which sounds nice, but it doesn't really incentivize people to make a product if they're not going to make any money off of it. Now, it does behoove people to make a vaccine. So if the virus is as deadly as everybody says it is, then, it behooves them so they don't die. But I don't think that's the case, So the best thing you can do is be like, hey, get a vaccine to market so that you can sell it and you can make some money, and a bunch of people will benefit from it by having an immunity to this new virus. But instead, what do? We issue executive orders, shut down industries, shut down cities. Like the Las Vegas Strip has been dark for coming on a month now, and that is fucking crazy. Casinos just not in operation. I live in Nevada. There's casinos everywhere. The local bar here where we hosted an American Forest, they just got their, they switched ownerships about 6 months ago or something like that. And Juan, the owner, just got his gaming license up to date and got his slot machines back in action. And that's, probably a pretty decent amount of income from him for him. And now that's just gone until the powers that be, if it pleases the crown, can I open back up? And that is really just devastating for especially small businesses. These bigger businesses, they'll be all right because they're probably going to get bailed out. That's what that $2 trillion, $2.2 trillion stimulus bill that they passed. The 0.2 part is what goes to the people in the form of these direct payments, which I'm not necessarily opposed to because I paid into that. So yeah, give me the $1,200, but also give me the rest of my tax money back as well. So I'm not. I don't see that as a handout. I see that as giving me back the money that I earned. On the other hand, you have airlines getting a huge chunk of money. You got banks getting a whole bunch of money, and the vast majority of that bill is going to just more pork barrel spending. Like I think it was like either 25 million or 250 million going to the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. What that has to do with coronavirus relief, I don't fucking know. I can't imagine that the Kennedy Center has $25 million worth of payroll that they've got to meet right now. So I don't know what that money goes to, but typical government spending. And the worst part that I see is these lockdown orders. They're unconstitutional and they violate your rights. So there's a couple instances I want to talk about. And this is more on the local and county level. So my hometown, Walsh, Colorado. I won't say this guy's name because I don't want to. I think he's a good guy. I think he made a really stupid statement, but I'm going to call him out for it. I won't call him out by name, but he's a local fire chief there, and he issued a statement. This guy's kind of an instigator on Facebook, likes to post memes, kind of like me, expecting a bunch of butthurt, which is funny because he doesn't have a whole lot of liberal friends, so I don't know who he's expecting to get butthurt sometimes. But anyways, I enjoy following his posts because he's kind of provocative intentionally. But in this case, he is posting as the fire chief. And he said, just remember that your rights don't mean a damn thing if you contract COVID-19 and die. And I thought that was just a brutally stupid statement. And, and if you get mad at me for pointing that out, so be it. But when you're a public official, you should not be saying your rights don't mean a damn thing. Your rights mean everything. Otherwise, you are nothing but a servant. And last I checked, I'm a citizen of the United States, but I'm a free man. So my rights mean more than this coronavirus. Because you're sick does not mean you lose your rights. Does that mean you have to exercise your right to move freely? No, it doesn't mean maybe you should. I believe you still have that right to do so. I think it would behoove you and behoove others that to just kind of lay low, especially if you are showing symptoms or you have been confirmed to have it. You probably ought to isolate yourself, quarantine yourself. I don't think you should be compelled to, though, because it all comes, the rights part comes down to, are you a citizen, are you a free person, or are you a subject? I'm a free man, and I'm okay with someone asking me to self-isolate, socially distance, whatever, practice social distancing. I guess that would be the correct term. I'm okay with somebody asking me, advising me to do so. When I'm told to do so, that's when I say fuck you. And I think probably the most disheartening thing about this whole situation is just how quickly people just say, okay, roll over, and just allow their rights to be trampled on. Another case was the county I lived in Kansas before we moved out here to Nevada, Hamilton County, Kansas. The public health officer, also not going to mention her name on there because it's not going to do any good. But anyway, they posted an article on an announcement on their Facebook page and in the local newspaper. It says coronavirus facts. Number one, they say, we believe there is a confirmed case in Hamilton County now. Now was all capitalized and in bold letters. Number two said, we expect 20 deaths from COVID-19. Number three said, we expect 200 hospitalizations. Number four said, prepare for a shelter-in-place order. So we'll just go step by step. And I saw this one guy in particular. He's a doctor, I believe, or a physician's assistant. I'm not for sure what his actual degree is, but works in the medical industry. And I saw him standing up for this for this lady. I guess to his credit, one of the things he said, this is the first truthful reporting I've seen on this case so far. Well, that's just false. The first statement said, we believe there is a confirmed case. You don't believe there is a confirmed case or there is not a confirmed case. You may have a suspected case, but until you are tested and that test comes back positive, that is not a confirmed case. So there doesn't matter what you believe. You either have a confirmed case or you don't have a confirmed case. Number two, they expect 20 deaths. That was the exact phrasing. We expect 20 deaths. Where they got that number, they later clarified that they took it from national averages or something, which still doesn't make sense. So I looked up numbers this morning. In the U.S., 163,000 cases, confirmed cases or recorded cases, and like 2,800 deaths. Less than 10%, closer to 2%. So if they're going off of the national average, there is 2,600 people in Hamilton County. So 20 deaths would be about the national average, and 200 hospitalizations. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but the point being is, without a confirmed case, you are throwing numbers out there that mean absolutely dick. Until you have anything concrete that you can go off of, you shouldn't put numbers out. You can report on the CDC statistics nationwide. You can report on the number of cases in Kansas and deaths, all that. But until you have something confirmed in Hamilton County, you should not be making predictions, and you should not be, posting them to the public. I thought this was one of the stupidest and most panicked moves I've ever seen coming from the county health officer. As far as I know, that's not an elected position, but it is a taxpayer-funded position. So you work for the public. Your job is to be the county health officer, meaning you inform and help the public through this like public health concern. So what you did there did not help anything except create a panic. And rightfully, this gal got roasted on Facebook. I mean, absolutely roasted. Rightfully so. My opinion, she should probably be fired. I don't wish any ill will on her, but if we're looking at the facts, they later clarified that there was not a confirmed case in Hamilton County. So, as I said, you're posting bullshit numbers that mean absolutely nothing except to gin up fear. Whether that was intentional or not, I don't think it was their intention to cause a bunch of fear. I think they wanted people to take this seriously. Regardless, that was a stupid move. Showed a lack of wherewithal to, and like a lack of restraint on how you should deal with this. And if that's not what I want in my county health officer. So in my opinion, and even though I don't live there, I still own property there for the time being. I still pay property tax and still somewhat contribute to that local economy, which pays her salary. I think it'd be justified that she was fired. I don't know what happened to her, probably nothing. That was a stupid move, and it's shit like that gets people needlessly worked up and causes them to go out and buy toilet paper in bulk, and it was not needed. So I don't know what it's going to take for people to stand up and say, hey, we've got to get back to work. I don't know when that's going to happen. Me personally, I've not been affected by this very much because I'm considered an essential employee or an essential business that I work for. So I went to work just like normal. Nothing on that end has changed. There's been some mild inconveniences as far as doing business goes, but that's just going to get worse the longer this lasts. So they're talking until the end of April for the national emergency, maybe longer, and they're predicting like 100 to 200,000 deaths is what the White House administration has come out with. So I don't know how much stock I put into that. If that's the case, it could get pretty ugly. It's already pretty ugly, but not really so much from a health standpoint. I mean, in certain places, it is bad news. In the long run, I think I'll probably be all right because I do a pretty good job of social distancing just by way of where I live and what I do for a living and my nature. So I'm not that worried about it, but I'm very worried about the economic standpoint and just the power grab by the federal, state, local, county governments, all these executive orders, all these mandates are getting out of control, and people are letting the governments get away with it, and they need to start standing up for their rights. I don't know what that entails in anybody's personal situation, but I know if I had a bar, I would be seriously looking at just ignoring this mandatory closure of non-essential businesses, because fuck the government for deciding who's essential and who's not. That's not their call. So take that and do with it what you will, but you've got to stand up for your rights, because you can't count on anybody else to do it for you. You damn sure can't count on your government to protect them. So you've got to hold them accountable, and if not, they're just going to continue to run roughshod over you. So as the lefties say, you got to stay woke. And I'll leave you on that note. Kind of a short episode. I had some other stuff I wanted to say, but got windy. Couldn't really do it much on horseback, and then I kind of lost my train of thought. So that's where I'm going to leave you. But hey, make sure you come back on Friday. Well, tomorrow night we're probably going to do another live session with Sam and try that again. And then Friday morning will be Corb Lund. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate all your support. Means the world. This thing's been a lot of fun. So keep it up. Please share, especially the podcast episodes, so we can get it in front of many people's eyes and in as many people's ears as we can. In as many people's ears as we can. Can't talk today, but I would appreciate it. We've been experiencing some shadow banning on Facebook, so if you share it, there's not much they can do besides delete it, and I don't think we're at that point just yet. So share the stuff around if you like it, and I would be eternally grateful to you for it. So go find me on Facebook. I'm Matt McKinley at MickerMac85 on Twitter and Instagram. The show page is Burning Daylight on Facebook and YouTube. At Move Your Ass on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Hit the notification or hit the bell so you get a notification when we go live or when I upload a new video. Trying to grow that thing, so make sure you do that. And as always, just keep tuning in. Love you all. Appreciate it.